So, what happens when a fight that's supposed to be contained between just 2 or 3 countries suddenly blows up? I mean, really explodes, dragging 6 other nations right into the middle of the crossfire. And what if the shockwaves from that explosion don't just stop there, but ripple out across the entire globe? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. How one regional conflict became, well, pretty much everyone's problem.
Right, so this is the central question we're tackling. How did a single targeted strike spiral into a massive regional war? We're going to unpack that super fast escalation, take a hard look at the countries caught in this incredibly dangerous middle ground, and really connect the dots to show why this fallout, it actually matters to all of us, no matter where on the map you are. Okay, to really get a handle on how we ended up here, we've got to go back. Let's rewind the clock to those first 10 days. This is the spark, the moment that set the whole region on fire. So it all kicked off on February 28th with those coordinated U.S.-Israeli strikes hitting targets inside Iran. But Iran's response, man, it was anything but small. It was huge, and it was fast. Between March 1st and 3rd, they just unleashed this massive barrage of missiles and drones. And here's the crucial part. They weren't just aimed at Israel. They were aimed at American military bases scattered all across the region. And that right there, that was the moment the entire game changed.
And just like that, this was no longer a contained fight. I mean, in an instant, you have countries that had said, hey, we're neutral, we're not in this, suddenly finding their skies full of incoming missiles. You can just imagine the air defense alarms going crazy and their people caught right in the middle of it all. And that brings us right to the Gulf nations. You know, you often hear that phrase, geography is destiny. And in this case, it's absolutely true. Their location put them in a uniquely and dangerously vulnerable spot.
So we're talking about all 6 members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC. That's Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. Every single one of them was directly affected, and they all have one huge thing in common. They all host major U.S. military assets. That fact alone made them pretty much unavoidable targets in any conflict involving the United States.
Now, what's interesting is the official line coming out of Tehran. They're saying, hey, we're not attacking you, the Gulf states. We're only targeting the U.S. military assets on your soil. But I mean, come on, let's be real. When a missile is flying towards your country, that's a distinction that gets real blurry real fast. It's almost meaningless when you're the one on the ground. And the scale of this whole thing is just, it's staggering. To give you a feel for the sheer firepower we're talking about, Iran launched over 240 ballistic missiles. And look, these aren't just some crude rockets. We're talking sophisticated, powerful weapons designed to hit important targets and cause a whole lot of disruption. But it wasn't just the missiles. On top of that, they unleashed a swarm of over 1,400 drones. This is a classic modern warfare tactic, right? The whole point is to just saturate and overwhelm even the most advanced air defenses by hitting them from all directions at the same time. The Gulf was suddenly facing a brand new kind of attack from the sky. But, and this is a huge but, there's a key piece of information here that kept this from becoming a total catastrophe. Even with that insane number of missiles and drones, the air defense systems across the Gulf worked incredibly well. We're talking an 85 to 95% interception rate. That capability, which took years to build, was literally the only thing standing between this being a regional crisis and a full-blown, unimaginable disaster. All right, let's zoom in on one country that's walking what is maybe the trickiest tightrope of all, Qatar. Their situation is just a fascinating case study in the kind of high-stakes diplomatic balancing act you need to pull off just to survive a crisis like this. Just think about this incredible duality for a second. On the one hand, Qatar is a major U.S. ally. They host the Al Udeid Air Base, which is the biggest American base in the entire region. It's basically the nerve center for U.S. air power. But on the other hand, they've been very careful to keep communication lines open with Iran, which lets them play the role of a key mediator. It's a strategic position that is both a massive strength and, you guessed it, a huge risk. And Qatar has been making its position crystal clear with official statements just like this one. What they're essentially telling Washington, both out in the open and behind the scenes, is, look, just because we host your base doesn't mean we're in the fight. They're saying their land cannot be used as a launchpad for attacks. And that is an incredibly bold stance to take, one that definitely risks some serious friction with their most powerful ally. This is all part of our really smart 4-part strategy. First up, de-escalate. They're always using those back-channel diplomatic connections to try and cool things down. Second, mediate.
They're the ones passing messages back and forth between the US and Iran to try and stop a deadly miscalculation. Third, protect. Their military posture is strictly defensive. They're just protecting their own airspace. And finally, number 4, sovereignty. They are constantly and publicly reaffirming their neutrality and their control over their own territory. It's really a masterclass in how to handle a crisis. Okay, so let's pull the camera back out now, because even though the shooting is happening in the Gulf, the consequences, well, they're being felt everywhere. This is shaking up global politics and rattling financial markets all over the world. And the international response is just completely fractured. You've got the US and Israel, who are locked into this open-ended military campaign. Then you have Europe, which is getting really nervous about a potential energy crisis and is pretty much begging for an immediate ceasefire. And then over here, you have China and Russia, who are condemning the strikes and trying to position themselves as the voices of reason, all while protecting their own strategic interests, of course. I mean, the gravity of this whole situation is just undeniable. The head of the United Nations came out with this incredibly stark warning. He said the region is on the edge of a systemic war. That's not just another flare-up. That's UN speak for a conflict that could drag the entire international system into a much, much bigger war. And what was the very first economic shockwave everyone felt? You guessed it, oil prices. They shot past $100 a barrel, which is a huge psychological line in the sand. It just sends tremors through the whole global economy. And the crazy thing is, this spike wasn't even caused by a real shortage of oil. It was driven purely by fear of what might happen next. But the economic pain goes way beyond just the price at the pump. All of a sudden, insurance costs for shipping companies tripled. Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, that critical choke point where a fifth of the world's oil passes through, it's been drastically reduced. Major airports like Dubai and Doha are dealing with closures. Tourism? Gone. Big international investments? Frozen. It's just this cascade of economic damage that's hitting markets everywhere. And all of this leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. A crisis like this is just such a powerful reminder of how deeply connected everything is now. When trade, energy, and security are all tangled up like this, it really makes you ask a fundamental question. Can any country, truly stay on the sidelines anymore? Or in the 21st century, is the idea of being neutral just an illusion?